You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can follow us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. Good morning to you, Calvin.
How are you this morning, Earl?
Well, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Yeah, it sounded like they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory last night.
Man, it was, it for all the world, the Brewers have been in the playoffs, people may not notice, the last 5 or 6 years. So, I mean, they're right there, and you just wonder, and you really thought last night was going to be the opportunity, man. They had a rookie pitcher. He pitched 5 innings. He only gave up 2 hits. They go into the bottom of the 8th inning. It's 0-0. The Brewers hit 2 solo home runs back-to-back. And so you figure, man, this is it. They're bringing in Devin Williams, once the best relief pitcher in the major leagues 2 years in a row. Granted, just coming off of surgery that he had earlier this summer, and so he didn't play much. He came back. I think he's probably been back maybe about a month. So it's just what you wanted, Calvin. Your closer, arguably one of the best relief pitchers in the entire league. You're up 2-0. You're at home. The people are going crazy. And then the unthinkable happened, Calvin.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's baseball. Everything can change with one swing of the bat.
Do you think the Brewer fans want to hear that?
Well, no, definitely not.
But you are right. It is baseball. But the guy who ever came up with that axiom, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, man, that's what took place last night, man. And that's a hard pill to swallow, Calvin. The Brewers firmly in first place. Man, for the better half of the year, second half of the year, and great young team. And you're figuring this is it. And, man, and that quickly, it's over. And, go ahead, Calvin.
Yeah, and baseball's, I don't know, it's so much about peaking at the right time, and it definitely feel like the Brewers peaked in, like, July, and they were kind of not doing so well the past 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, it without question, what you say is true, and I know. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I know that there are Brewer fans, especially Luke, man, right?
Yeah, and Greg.
Hey, Greg too. So Luke was there last night, and I know, man, he had to be just probably in shock this morning.
Yeah, definitely a tough pill to swallow. I mean, I'm not a huge Brewer fan, but I can relate it to being a Bucks fan, and it
I
definitely
know.
is a bummer when your season ends.
Hey, Brendan, I can tell you've been around a while, man. That was the opening of the wide world of sports, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. But no game better portrayed that than what transpired with the Brewers last night. But let's got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be joined by Dan Schaefer this morning, and we got a lot to talk about with him. But I want to begin with this, and I don't know how you can't talk about this. You know, Kamala Harris is being scorned and ridiculed by the Republican Party because they say she only offered $750 to the victims of the Helene's hurricane. And so Donald Trump Jr., amongst high-profile Republicans, have been criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris following her visit to see Hurricane Helene's damage in Georgia, claiming she only offered those affected $750. Now, we're going to break this down, because if you just go by what they say, you would say, how in the world is it possible that the wealthiest nation on earth can only offer $750 to people who've lost everything? And if you listen to Republicans and Donald Trump and others lying like they do, then you would say, man, that's it. That's all she offered. But Calvin, I don't think that a vice president can offer anything. She doesn't make the call on how much money is going to be allocated in these tough situations. That's generally handled by Alejandro Mayorkas, who is a guy who's kind of over those kinds of things. Joe Biden and a whole group of people who make that call, Calvin.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just a misunderstanding of how the government works and how FEMA works. From my understanding, is $750 per person affected. The way the law is written, that's the maximum amount they can offer without congressional approval. So their hands are kind of tied unless Congress does something about it.
So the $750 that she was talking about was immediate dollars to help people buy food and water. And what do people need right away after, Calvin, after this kind of a disaster? The first thing they need is food and water, clean water and food, and yes, shelter. And so FEMA is down there attempting to, provide shelter. But I'm listening to conservative radio, and they're saying that the reason that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are not helping these people are because a lot of them are MAGAs. You know, Calvin, a lot of them live in North Carolina, South Carolina, and they live in the hills. And so they're hard to reach. And those roads have been wiped out. And so to say that the reason that they're not helping them, I mean, everything's got to be politics with these people. The reason they're not helping them is because they're MAGAs. And so if you want to believe that, fine. But I got a lot of information that I'm going to share with you that will push back against all of that. Sometimes I think when these people say and do the things they do, they think that there aren't people like me and others who can dig into what's truth and what's a lie. And so what these people are talking about and why this $750, is allocated, if you thought that was all that the government was providing, then you would have every right to be outraged. But that's not the case. The $750 is for right this moment. People who have nothing. It gives them an opportunity to go and get something to eat, to get water, as FEMA is working feverishly to try to house these people. Now, I don't know what you expect or what people think. I remember Hurricane Katrina. Maybe some of you don't. And so to say that they haven't been there and they haven't done all of this and they were late getting to the game is not true. They've attempted to move heaven and earth. That's what our government does. They don't do things based on whether somebody is a MAGA or whether somebody is, a northern person or a southern person. It's not true. And so just because Donald Trump Jr. and other urchins like him are willing to lie, and Donald Trump himself lying and misleading people during a crisis, what more do you expect from, these people? Now, I'm going to dismantle these lies in the next, 20 minutes or so. And I wonder what people will say then, because how soon we forget. But man, thank God for Google. Thank God for computers. Because before it'd be hard to try to find that information. Right now, it's at your fingertips. So I'm going to dismantle the lies that are being spread by those who support Donald Trump and himself at a time that they would take advantage of people who are at the lowest ebb. Says a lot about who they are. 855-752-4842 is the number. That's Friday, and so Sandy Williams is out of town this week, so we're going to do it ourselves. You can join us at 855-752-4842. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show. All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. So you're going to be hearing nonstop from conservatives that Vice President Kamala Harris only offered $750 to these families that have been impacted and affected by Hurricane Helene. And did she offer $750? Yes, she did. And so that's because that's what they needed to do and will do to just get people what they need at that moment. And that's food and water, the bare necessities of life. When everything you have is wiped away, you can't think right away. You're not going to solve this immediately. What is the number one need of the people at that time? And so that's why. Now, this is according to not Earl Ingram, but Alejandro Mayorkas, Homeland Security Secretary. Here's what he had to say. He warned the Federal Emergency Management Agency does not have enough funding to cover the rest of the hurricane season. The big picture, Hurricane Helene carved a path of destruction through 6 southeastern states, leaving unprecedented devastation, totaling tens of billions of dollars across communities, several of which officials said Thursday will need a full rebuild. At least 215 people were killed due to the storm, which brought catastrophic flooding to coastal and inland towns, according to the Associated Press. The Federal Relief Agency is extending aid in the form of food, water, generators, and monetary assistance, among other resources. So far, officials said Thursday FEMA has provided over $20 million in individual assistance. What he's saying, we are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have, Mayorkas told reporters on Wednesday, per multiple reports. He continued, we are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season. Now, why does FEMA not have the funds? 855-752-4842. I know why they don't have the funds. I'm wondering if you know. 855-752-4842. If you listen to Republicans, they'll tell you it is because they've used the money on immigrants who are here illegally. And that the reason that the FEMA funds aren't there is because they don't have them because they gave all of those funds to illegal immigrants. Now, here's what I want you to understand. And again, especially those who are on the right side, I said before I was going to stop calling people, the Republicans, right on the right side of things. They're certainly on the wrong side of things. But here's a reminder. I remember last year when the budget debate was going on. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. And the Republican Party was opposed to the FEMA dollars. The government that the government was requesting. It was Republicans who were opposed to that. You know, they personally voted against the increase in FEMA dollars. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. It's there. They chose to turn down additional FEMA dollars, saying, they couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford it. Republicans. Well, now those same Republicans are here to lie to you. Look, I'm going to give you, where you can go to corroborate what I'm saying. So when you see them lying today and tomorrow and the next day, reporters should push back on them and say, hey, you guys are the ones who cut the FEMA budget in 2023. That's true. And yet they're going to continue to lie and lead people to believe that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are the ones who refuse to give these dollars to the American people who are struggling. I've also read where they're saying, well, they gave all this money to Ukraine, and yet they won't give it to the citizens. Man. 855-752-4842. We're going to have at it. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Think about it. There must be higher love down in the heart of hidden in the stars above. Without it, life is wasted time. Look inside your heart, I look inside mine. Things look so bad everywhere in this whole world. What is fair? We walk blind, we try to see, falling behind in what could be. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Oh, bring me a higher love.
All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. That's 855-752-4842. So as you watch, over the next few days and weeks, Republicans lying, the president, former president of the United States lying, Republican congressmen and senators lying, Republican talk show hosts lying about the response to Hurricane Helene. You need to know the truth and the facts. And these are some of the facts. And then I'll go to the phone lines. So, every single Florida House Republican voted against disaster relief funding. Let me repeat that. Every single Florida House Republican voted against disaster relief funding. That's a level of callous indifference and political opportunism that boggles the mind, one Florida Democrat said. Just days after Category 4 Hurricane Ian devastated Florida, killing at least 88 people and leveling and flooding thousands of buildings, nearly every Florida Republican in the U.S. Congress voted against a bill containing billions in funding for disaster relief that officials could have access to begin recovery after the storm. Last week, Congress passed a stopgap government bill, and this is in 2023, that contained $18.8 billion in federal emergency management funds, FEMA funds, to account for climate crisis-fueled worsening natural disasters that Florida officials could use to speed recovery from Ian, according to the Daily Beast. The bill provided FEMA with a year's worth of disaster funds rather than just the next few months' worth. Now, let me tell you, because there's so much more of this information that's out there that we're going to be going through. Let me go to the phone lines. Let's go to Heather from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Heather. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it. And I want to start out by saying I've been a long-time Democrat. I have campaigned. I have fundraised for Democratic candidates, walk door to door, get out the vote and all this. But I will not be this time. And I want to share why. And I want to share why also that I want to bring to your listeners' attention that on August 13th, 2024, that was at the start of just approaching the hurricane season. You mentioned that FEMA says they don't have any funds for the rest of the season. On August 13th, 2024, the Department of State announced that the U.S. had approved a $20 billion, that's with a B as in boy, weapons package aid sale to Israel, which included fighter jets and advanced air-to-air missiles. These weapons are being used to commit a genocide in Gaza, and they're now bombing Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria with our U.S. tax dollars. That's $20 billion that could have been gone to our communities here to provide food and water, whereas what we're doing is there's all the money in the world for weapons and to kill innocent civilians all over the world in using our tax dollars. And when we need the money, oh, I'm sorry, there's no money to be had. I don't know what happened to it. We know what happened to it because at the start of the season, we were gifting $20 billion to a foreign government to commit a genocide in our U.S. tax dollars' name.
Hey, Heather, I can feel the pain in your voice. What I will say to you is, this is not just something Democrats have done. Our nation has done that from its inception. And so, you can say that the Democrats have done this, but Republicans and Democrats both agree when it comes to funding Israel. And so by not voting Democrat in this instance, you say that Donald Trump is the person that you think should become president of the United States. You think Donald Trump is going to do something different? I understand your pain. I agree with you. I don't like what is happening in the Middle East. But these things are done unilaterally, and both Democrats and Republicans both agree. They don't agree on much of anything, but when it comes to this and when it comes to war, in most cases, they agree on it. So I would ask you that, with the emotion that you're feeling, because I agree with you, when man's inhumanity to man continues to go on, and what is happening in the Middle East and the fact that we turn a blind eye to it is horrific. Okay? I mean, I agree with you across the board on that. But the answer is certainly not voting for Donald Trump if you think Donald Trump is going to do something better. There's so many other aspects of things that Donald Trump and Republicans are going to destroy that, I would ask you to think twice about the decision. But I understand. I truly understand how you feel. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Jim from Brookfield. Good morning to you, Jim. You say what?
Good morning, Earl. I say the Republicans currently are taking the mantra, never let a good disaster go to waste. They're taking that to an extreme with the ultimate lies. They're out there now saying that because the administration is giving a heads up, FEMA may be short-funded this year due to the amount of disasters that are occurring. They're forgetting that Congress sets the budget for FEMA, not the administration.
That's
not
correct.
Kamala Harris. That's Congress that does. And they're also forgetting that in this Project 2025, they're saying eliminate FEMA and we're going to privatize relief. I mean, come on. You imagine what that'd be like if it was privatized? I mean, they're just there for profit. But the Republicans are forgetting that it's Congress who sets the budget for FEMA, that Project 2025 is calling for the elimination of FEMA, and for them to tie it in and to say that we're out of money because Kamala Harris specifically gave all this money to FEMA that should be going to the North Carolina families and whatnot, and, you know, that they gave it to illegal aliens. That's just beyond pale to put that message out there and scare people and say that all the illegal people crossing from the border, they're getting your money, your hard-earned taxpayers' money that FEMA, you know, should be giving to our people, you know, that it's going to these illegal aliens. That's just beyond pale. And that Stephen Miller, who, you know, was Trump's border czar or whatever, you know, he's just the most ruthless person. You know, he wants to cut funding, you know, for FEMA and everything, and to use those scare tactics and to blatantly lie, which you've been mentioning all morning, Earl. I just think that's beyond pale. They're using these poor people, innocent victims of this catastrophe for their political gain, and I think that's just beyond pale.
Hey, Jim,
really
I couldn't have said it better, man. Thank you very much for the call. They're just lying, man. It's not a surprise. They're just flat out lying. Republicans have refused to increase the FEMA budget last year, the year before. And now that there's a shortfall, instead of them being truthful, what do you think they're gonna do? What they do, lie. Just continue to lie. And yet there are some people who are going to believe that. It's one of the reasons why I did some research before I came in today to tell you about why there's a shortfall in FEMA. 18 Republicans in Florida last year voted to cut the FEMA funds. And then the hurricanes hit Florida. And then they started whining and crying and pointing the finger. We've got their names. Let me see. The bill passed despite opposition Floridians in the caucus. 16 Republican House representatives from the state voted against the bill, including the 2 Republicans who represent constituents in Lee County, where much of the hurricane's destruction was felt. In all, 201 Republicans voted against the bill to keep the government funded through December, while only 10 voted yes. That's last year. Let's go to Lynn from Oconomowoc. Good morning to you, Lynn. Thank you very much for the call. You say what?
Thank you, Earl. The billions of dollars in weapons that we're sending to Israel, those are actual weapons. They exist, and I'm sure the vendors have already been paid. They're taking those weapons out of our stockpile of weapons. It's not new money. Just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Susan. Good morning to you, Susan. You say what?
Well, good morning. I'm from Milwaukee, and I was a victim of the Deep Tunnel Project, and I had to deal with FEMA 5 times because my basement and house was flooded 5 times. And FEMA, what you do with FEMA is that you have to register with them. They make an appointment, and they come over to your residence or what's left of your residence. And then they don't quote you amount of money or whatever, but based on the damage that is done to your home, they go and make this report. And then what happens weeks later, a check will come through from the government. That's how FEMA works. What Harris is giving is some relief, is giving these people food and water, which they desperately need. And that's where the $750 comes in. We never got that because we had running water, and then our electricity was restored within a number of hours or days. So people have to realize what the Republicans are doing is another form of fear mongering and pointing the finger. The government is working as quickly and as humanely as possible, and the needs of the people are to feed them, house them, and give them fresh water to drink. And people, you gotta stop listening to this propaganda, and working your way up and saying, I'm not going to vote for this, the Biden administration, because this and that. They're doing the best that they can. And if you look, and I'm glad that you do what I do, is I look it up who voted for what. And the Republican Party voted down increasing FEMA.
Yes.
So they're only
over the last 4 years, they voted against FEMA.
Yes. And that is what is so funny. People wake up.
Hey, Susan, thank you very much for the call. Hang on the phone lines. 855-752-4842 is the number. You know, you just got to look and find out for yourself. You can't accept what these people are saying. They're just lying. Donald Trump is the number one liar, and the rest of them follow suit. 855-752-4842. You're tuned into a Friday edition of the Earl Ingram Show. All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. Right before I go to the phone lines, let me read this quickly. Last week, as Hurricane Helene was on course to ravage Florida's Gulf Coast, Congress passed a government funding bill without critically needed supplemental disaster relief funding. But Rick Scott didn't lift a finger to fight for it. Instead, Scott opposed including supplemental disaster relief funding and left Washington early. Floridians desperately need disaster relief funding to rebuild from Helene, but Rick Scott chose to put politics over people instead of fighting for the disaster relief his constituents would need. Scott skipped town without getting the job done. Nothing he says now can distract Floridians from his failure. The funding omission was made all the more striking by the fact that lawmakers were leaving Washington 2 days ahead of the schedule, in part because of the hurricane. And some members like Rick Scott and Representative Matt Gaetz, both Florida Republicans who have opposed efforts to preemptively appropriate disaster dollars, either voted against the CR or skipped the vote to be in Florida ahead of Helene's fallout. Let's go to the phone lines and Gary from Sussex. Good morning to you, Gary. You say what?
Well, you know, no matter who you point the blame at, and I'm not saying for me or you or whatever, but whoever points the blame, doesn't matter because they go by who is in charge at the time. And since it's the Biden administration and Harris administration, they're going to blame them. My cousin, I talked to her yesterday. She lives in North Carolina, and she got some flooding. It wasn't really bad. I was really happy to hear that she fared right through this thing. And she is a strong Biden. I mean, on politics, we're just the opposite, you know. But things are going to change in the next week. If people don't get water and they don't get more money than $750, there's going to be a problem.
Hey, Gary,
it's not going to be.
Did you just dismiss everything that I've been talking about for the last 55 minutes?
I've been listening on and off. I mean, Earl, I have a job.
So I'm listening, man. No, I'm not talking. Well, the bottom line, Gary, is you said it doesn't matter who's to blame. They blame the people in office. I just got through explaining that Republicans are the reason that FEMA doesn't have the money that it needs. The last 4 years, they voted no to increases for FEMA. It does matter.
Does it matter whether money has been taken out of FEMA to give to illegal aliens for housing and phones and all that?
Well, see, Gary, that's the lies that are being told right now. And so that's why you didn't get to hear it, because like you were working, that's fine. But I pointed out where Republicans have not voted yes to raising the appropriations for FEMA over the last 4 years. Republicans.
I understand. And that's what I started out. I said, it doesn't matter who you're blaming. There's a problem right now. And it's going to be a problem for many, many years. So if Trump gets in, there's going to be a problem. And they're going to blame him while he's in office. If Harris gets in there, it's going to be the same thing. There is an absolute problem, and you can blame anybody or push the blame on Trump, or you can blame it on the Republicans or the Democrats. There's a problem, and it's going to be with us for a
Hey, Gary, the Republicans are blaming Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Okay? So I push back on that with facts that Republicans have chosen not to fund FEMA. As a matter of fact, Project 2025 wants to privatize FEMA. So there is a difference, man. It's not one and the same.
Knowing that we're in a hurricane season right now, for the Republicans to go out there and say, we don't want to give much more money to FEMA. We want to put it other places, maybe to building more ships or more defense. I don't know. All I know
I just read it, Gary.
Right, I know that, what you read. But I'm going to say that America is going to blame the person who's in charge, and whoever is in charge who wins the election, they're going to be blamed, whether it's Trump or Biden.
Hey, Gary, not all of America agrees with you. You can't speak for America. You can only speak for yourself and a certain segment of the population that agree with you. So, don't agree with you on that. 855-752-4842 is the number. It's Friday. And I'm going to be joined by Dan Schaefer. Hang on the phone lines. We'll come to you on the other side.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.